What's going on, everybody? Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel, the Boss Sports Network. Thank you guys for the continued support. Continue to hit the like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, this is another issue with the Los Angeles Clippers. More noise is coming out of that camp, and it's some of the stuff we already kind of knew. It was rumored, but it's like it's being confirmed, right? Why they had so many issues with their team. Now, the Athletic put out a report that said some interesting stuff, and I'm gonna just share my screen. The Athletic is subscription based, and I don't have a subscription to the Athletic, but they give quite an insight on what's taking place right here in this little snippet. See, it says Kawhi Leonard is actually trending on Twitter as I speak. And it says the treatment the Clippers gave Kawhi Leonard and Paul George rubbed some teammates the wrong way. We heard that during the playoffs last season that a lot of guys, and Montrez seems to be the odd man out. He seemed to be the guy that really took the most issue with the treatment of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, just not thinking those guys were as good as they were proclaimed to be, and the treatment that they got just wasn't right. And it says Kawhi and PG had power over the practice schedule. So they chose when they practiced and when they didn't. Kawhi lived in San Diego. Obviously the Clippers play in LA, which made him late often, right? So when you're taking, helicopters or whatever from San Diego to LA, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get there. From parts of Southern California. We know how the LA, for those who've been to LA, we know how the LA traffic is. And even if you're taking a helicopter, it still can take a while. And it says teammates believe they chose when they played. Now, obviously, that goes back to the load management stuff and who agrees with that and who doesn't get down with that. That is interesting, right? Because we heard a lot of these rumors right when the Clippers lost in the playoffs to the Nuggets, right? It was like a bunch of bickering and a bunch of guys going back and forth. And this guy, like, it was really like Lou Williams and Montrez was on one side and Paul George and PG and Kawhi Leonard was on the other side. And what made it collide so heavily, because the load management and all that stuff had been taking place all season, but now they were losing, right? Like now they weren't winning anymore, and now they were getting sent home. And they were getting sent home before they were supposed to. They didn't even make it to the conference finals to play the Lakers. That is not a successful season. That is not what the Clippers signed up for. That is not what guys intended to happen when they joined the Los Angeles Clippers. And so a lot of this stuff that we're getting that's coming out was stuff that we had kind of already heard, stuff that we kind of already knew. But what makes it interesting is what is going to change? Like, is that going to change? Because if that does not change, the same issues will rise forward, right? Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have the Clippers in a stranglehold because technically they only have 1 year left on their deal before they can opt out. So they only have 1 year left on the deal. And you gave up so much, and particularly for Paul George, you gave up 4 first-round picks. Now that's a whole lot. 4 first-round picks and players like future stars, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type players, Danilo Gallinari type players, like 4 first-round picks or 5 first-round picks and future players to get this man. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you're winning championships and you're one of the best teams in the NBA, those first-round picks really don't matter a whole lot. But if you lose Paul George and Kawhi Leonard just 2 years after this thing and you have no championships to speak for it, those first-round picks become super valuable because now you're going to be garbage. Now you're not going to be very good. And so you gave up all that. And so therefore, you have to do these things, right? And so because of that, you're going to have disgruntled players if you don't achieve what you're supposed to achieve. And not only are you going to have disgruntled players, you're going to have guys walking out the door. So these guys that you gave up all this stuff for are going, if you don't achieve, it's like a big cycle, right? Let me break it down. It's like a huge cycle. So Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, nothing's going to change. Kawhi Leonard is clearly going to stay in San Diego. People are they're still clearly going to pick the practice schedule and whatever the hell they want to do because they're your stars, and they're the ones that's running the franchise. Stars run the team. Look at LeBron with the Lakers. Look at every pick your favorite star. They're running the team. Look at what they're doing for Giannis up in Milwaukee. Like stars run the team. So the guy's going to still run it. Live in San Diego. Still going to pick practice schedules. Still going to be late to practice. So that's not gonna change. the team is still, so that's going to lead to players on the team. They blamed it all on Montrezl Harrell, but it's not just Trez. It's going to lead to more guys being disgruntled on this team, whether it's new guys added to the roster or guys on the team that just like, man, what the hell's going on? Like, why does he get to choose when we practice? Why does he get to be late? Like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to continue. And then because of that, I think you're not going to have the success in the playoffs that you expect. Right. And so when you don't have the success in the playoffs because your stars are being spoiled brats, right? When you don't have the success in the playoffs, that leads to your stars leaving. These guys are going to opt out and go play somewhere else where they think they can win. And that's the reality in the NBA. And that's the scary part for the Clippers because you just gave up all these assets to get these stars. And after 2 years, they might be out of there. After 2 years, you might be ringless and starless. No championships and no stars to even talk about it with. And all your first round picks that once you lose your stars, your first round picks become super valuable because they'll probably be in the lottery, and all those belong to OKC. That and everybody else's first round pick belong to the Thunder. So that's a cycle for disaster that the Clippers are going to try to avoid this upcoming NBA season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. at the Black Boss Channel. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell.